This week on The Record, Mayor Spencer goes to Jefferson City. What's on her agenda as Missouri Republicans pursue their plans? State of the state, Governor Mike Kehoe calls Missouri stagnant, his plan to give the economy a kickstart. Senator Josh Hawley's about face, and Congressman Mike Bost and his early win at the Supreme Court. Plus, can you really trust police statistics? What the numbers and the fine print really shows about safety in St. Louis. It's all coming up on The Record. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. Governor Mike Kehoe rolled out his second act as he embarks on his second year in office, calling for voters to slash the state's income tax from 4.7% down to 0.
When we're competing against states like Tennessee and Texas, states with no individual income tax, too often the conversation ends before it truly begins. And the consequences are real. Missouri's population is stagnant. Over the past decade, our economic growth has been average at best. We must begin the work now to phase out and eliminate Missouri's individual income tax.
Kehoe getting a standing ovation from Republicans while later calling to add new taxes on digital streaming services and sales taxes on a broader array of items. Democrats branding him, quote, tax hike Mike. The day after his big speech at Jefferson City, he had a big guest, the mayor of St. Louis. We went to her office on Thursday. Mayor Kara Spencer is now on The Record. You just got back from lobbying lawmakers in Jefferson City. What does St. Louis need from the state most right now?
Well, I don't know about lobbying, but we were certainly meeting with a host of folks in Jefferson City.
Building relationships.
Building relationships is how I would describe it. What we need most right now is collaboration with the state of Missouri. We were doing a bit of relationship building in anticipation of some of the bills that we've already seen filed related to the city of St. Louis, some of which are related to our earnings tax, some of which are related to budgetary issues, with regards to the state takeover of our police department, and some redevelopment proposals or some taxing proposals for redeveloping downtown. So, we want to be protective of our earnings tax, of course, to make sure that we have the ability to tax our residents the way that the city of St. Louis has chosen to tax its residents and really build out its budget. And we want to, be able to work with our state to create incentives for redeveloping our downtown and neighborhoods in general.
What happens to the city earnings tax if the state abolishes the income tax altogether?
Well, we believe it's a different taxing, it's a different taxing structure.
So it's possible the state could get rid of the income tax, the city keeps the earnings tax.
That is a possibility as far as I understand it at this time. And look, our earnings tax makes up a full 1/3 of our city's budget. And the authorizing statute for the earnings tax is one that's separate from how income tax is handled statewide. And so, it is vitally important to the ability of the city of St. Louis to provide basic city services to be able to have that taxing structure.
Is downtown safer today than when you took office? Can you point to any numbers that would show your work?
Sure, I will say it's safer, and this is a trend that preceded me. The safety trend in downtown has been on the right path for some years now, and that was borne out by the crime statistics, the crime rates that just came out earlier this week, and we're proud of that.
The chief promoted and touted the 84% clearance rate, but his department, his homicide division, tells us that 84% number includes old cases from years ago that got cleared in 25. It includes incomplete cases that never went to court, cases where the suspect is missing or jailed out of state. Why would the state lead with that number if only 1 in 3 of those homicide cases resulted in criminal charges ever being brought?
I saw some of your reporting on that yesterday. I can't speak to that yet. As a mathematician myself, I take numbers seriously, so I haven't gone into the details of that. But I will say that the numbers look good however you cut them. I mean, we are clearing more homicides, and that's a good thing. That's clear to me, and it's clear to the criminals. Criminal element. I mean, there's a feeling on the streets that if you commit a murder or if you commit a serious violent crime, there will be repercussions, and that's different than we were just a few years ago. Our circuit attorney is doing a phenomenal job, and we are improving those stats one way or the other.
But the chief referred to clearance rate and connected it to consequences. What consequences is he talking about if 2/3 of the killers are never charged?
I can't speak to that specifically. I haven't seen how you've rounded out those numbers. I understand.
Well, it's coming from the homicide division themselves. This is not just me inventing these numbers. They concede these numbers are.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's clear that there are far more consequences to criminal behavior than there was in the past, and that's evidenced by the cases that our circuit attorneys taking on, and the clearance rates are improving. I take your point. I don't know exactly how the numbers pan out, but I do know that there is a feeling in the community, a well-founded one, that there are more consequences than there used to be. The sense of lawlessness is waning, and that's a good thing. There are consequences, and we are enacting them where we can.
I know I've beat this drum before, but I was in your office in November, and you said in the next couple weeks or maybe a month we'd have numbers or progress on this front. I haven't seen it yet. You promised data-driven government. But the loose stat dashboard.
City stat, loose stat,
You're calling
city
it
stat.
city stat?
Well, look,
Can I just, the loose stat dashboard that monitors department performance is still not public. If this is the backbone of accountability, why is the public still barred from seeing it?
I don't know that the public is still barred from seeing it.
Can you see it?
We are in the process of developing what a city stat looks like.
So we can't see it.
Well, Mark, you will be able to see it, I promise.
When?
I don't know the answer to that. Look, it's a little bit complicated because putting together a dashboard, really getting through the numbers is a little more complicated than even I realized.
It's starting to feel like we're getting strung along a bit.
Look, I hear you on that front, and if I were you, I could see where that could come from. But developing a program for CityStat is not something that we could do overnight. We had to reinvent the wheel. The previous work was really not something we could really just sort of activate.
The data was messy, and it's a process getting all the data in. You want clean data in to have clean data out.
We also want meaningful data. So what we're doing right now is charging the departments with, we are identifying metrics that we're going to be measuring on a regular basis. We are implementing a weekly, bi-weekly review of what a city stat what a city stat delivery to the public could look like.
Like a report card, a public-facing report card kind of thing.
It's not just, it's like, some things could be considered easy. How many potholes are you filling? But there are quite a few nuances between the clearance rates of those. You get a lot of duplicates through CSB, and clearing out the data to make sure that what we're delivering to the public is clean and clear. What I don't want to get into is a circumstance like what you're describing, or with the clearance rates. There's a bunch of things that go into that, denominators, numerators, et cetera, that can end up being misleading.
You can dig into those numerators and denominators on KSDK.com if you care to look into those city crime stats and the homicide clearance rate. Oh, and proof that asking follow-up questions can sometimes become fruitful. The mayor called back after that interview, promising to show us those numbers and committing to a date of March 31st, so just a few months away before the city can see just how quickly your tax dollars are going to work for you. We're back in a minute with a look at the courts. The Missouri Supreme Court unanimously upholds a state law that bans gender-affirming care for minors. It's a ruling upholding Missouri's SAFE Act. Lawmakers passed it in 2023. The law bans gender transition surgery for minors and hormone therapy prescriptions, which does include puberty blockers. Doctors can have their medical license revoked for providing those services. The law also bans Medicaid funding for gender-affirming care for both kids and adults. A study from UCLA estimates the ruling impacts nearly 14,000 trans kids and about 36,000 adults. SCOTUS sides with Mike Boss. The next steps for the congressman as he plans to reshape the way Illinois counts its votes. Welcome back. Illinois Congressman Mike Bost won an early round of the U.S. Supreme Court in a case about mail-in ballots. Bost is celebrating the procedural green light to continue his case because before this ruling, courts would routinely toss out election-related lawsuits from candidates with a simple response: you haven't even been harmed yet, so come back if you lose. The Supreme Court just closed that door and may have opened another big one. The majority opinion said candidates have a personal stake in the integrity of the election itself, not just the outcome, even if you win big. So you can challenge election rules earlier now. You can get into court before votes are ever cast. You no longer have to prove the ruling will flip the outcome. That dramatically lowers the bar to election-related lawsuits getting into court at all. Now, a bit about the complaint itself. Bost doesn't like the Illinois law that allows election officials to continue receiving, processing, and counting mail-in ballots that can trickle in for up to 2 weeks after Election Day. State law requires those ballots must have a time-marked date stamp from the post office proving they were mailed in on or before Election Day to still be counted. The Supreme Court did not rule that those late-arriving ballots are illegal. It did not strike down existing Illinois law. It did not change how votes are counted in 2026. In short, Bost didn't win the argument. He just won the right to make it. Congressman, most active duty military members vote by mail. Of course, you represent a rather rural area. Do you trust the U.S. Post Service to deliver ballots quickly and reliably?
I do. There's a federal law in place, and it actually has been in place for a long time. Matter of fact, my first vote in 1980 for Ronald Reagan, I was actually in 29 Palms, California, voting by mail. And there's a process. The federal law requires timely sending out of the ballots 45 days prior. The state of Illinois had always done that before and always got their mail-in ballots in by Election Day. So they didn't change this law until 2005. Well, it was actually carried in 2005. It was the next election cycle that it was carried. So yes, I do trust them to do it just the same way all the other states do.
So, well, and a lot of states have expanded mail-in balloting over the years. Some states do mail-in balloting exclusively. If a service member mails a ballot on Election Day, but it arrives a day or two late because of delays in the mail, shouldn't that vote count?
And it will be counted. Let me tell you what the Illinois law says, though. It says that there are 14 days that they can count ballots.
You've said that Election Day should mean Election Day.
Election Day means the Election Day by law.
I understand that, but are you comfortable telling a deployed soldier that their vote does not count because the mail moved too slowly?
I'm not telling a deployed soldier that his or her vote does not count. I'm telling them that there's a process by which you get your vote in, and your vote definitely counts. And I just told you, my vote definitely counted in 1980, before this law existed. And I thank heaven it did. And I want to make sure that all of our veterans have the right to vote. And this bill, if we get rid of this law, it will go back to what it was before.
Thousands of Americans who live and work in your district get their health insurance coverage through the Affordable Care Act. How do you explain your vote to them that raises their out-of-pocket
I'm really
premiums?
glad you asked that, because it actually affects about 7% of the votes. Because why? Because Obamacare failed. It has failed, and the only way we've kept it going was during pandemic. We actually are paying billions of dollars to insurance companies to keep it going.
Are you saying that because so few of your constituents, just 7%, a minority of voters in your district are affected, that you can live with raising their premiums by such a large amount?
I can tell you that I'm going to be working, and I made a vote to reduce their premiums by 11%, even before this bill came into the floor.
But it didn't take effect.
I will tell them that as taxpayers, they should be concerned for their children and grandchildren as well, for the debt that we're to continue to support a program that doesn't work, that we're going to have to work on even if we pass this bill and it passes the Senate. And it passed the House. It didn't pass with my vote.
These are thousands of your constituents who are trying to make rent this month. What do you tell them now?
That we will continue to work to try to fix the problem on the insurance and fix it correctly. And that is what I will tell them. And I will also tell them, and we'll do it at a better cost to them as taxpayers.
President Trump's own chief of staff, Susie Wiles, said that he should have been more selective in issuing broad blanket pardons to January 6 rioters. Some of those convicts who were pardoned have since been charged with new violent crimes. Would you have pardoned every one of them?
So I don't have that power with my position. I don't agree with every pardon. Matter of fact, I did not agree with Rod Blagojevich being pardoned. But the president has that power. I've never questioned that power. But if you want to really talk about pardons that are pretty scary, it's the ones that are done with the electronic pen and not the president signing them himself.
You're referring to President Biden, though I think he was quite engaged in the idea of pardons that went to members of his family or political allies of his. Of course, he was making the case that he was fearing political retribution at the time.
And you know what? Our forefathers gave that power to our president. And many presidents have used it, and many presidents, people that were on the other side of whoever they might have been pardoning, feel like that maybe the president shouldn't have done that. But it is a power that we can question it, but it's still a power that's going to remain in the hands of the president.
President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act just today and to deploy active duty American military into the streets of Minneapolis. Is deploying active duty military against domestic protesters a wise use of presidential power in this, the land of the free?
It wouldn't be the first time it's had been used.
Well,
I know you're a little younger than me, but
you're referring to the Eisenhower or the Kennedy administrations.
They were during the riots of the race riots and also the riots over the Vietnam War. Troops were deployed because that is sometimes when that happens. When we're looking at the videos coming out of Minneapolis or out of Minnesota at this time, and the governor, who I know well, is refusing to follow federal law and allow federal agents to do what federal agents need to do, and encouraging people to resist federal law enforcement, then that is a problem. And how the president handles it, he has those powers, and we will watch and see what he does with it.
Vice President Vance said this week that ICE agents will be going door to door. Can you think of anything in the Bill of Rights that might suggest that's not allowed?
Sure. I can tell you why they can go door to door, because they're going door to door to locate these people who are here illegally that have been known to commit many crimes, which they explain on a regular basis, that include criminal sexual assault, rape, robbery, murder in some cases, and were active with gangs before they got here.
Well, I mean, a person's home is the most sacred protected space in constitutional law. The Fourth Amendment protects our privacy. The Fifth Amendment protects our life, liberty, and property.
You don't have to quote the Constitution to me. I know it. But I'm telling you that when it is there's federal crime involved, there is a procedure that you can go to locate.
Well, then wouldn't they have a warrant?
If they have, we'll see how they handle it.
All right, Congressman Mike Boss, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
When we come back, a closer look at words and actions. We check the record on the debate over war powers, how Missouri's senior senator weighed in. Last week, something of a rare sighting in Washington these days, a politician taking a stand against his own party. Senator Josh Hawley voted last week to rein in President Donald Trump's war powers. But this week, Hawley flip-flopped, his reversal becoming the decisive vote to give the president exactly what he wanted. At first, the constitutional lawyer, now senator, argued that the president needed to go to Congress to get war powers. Now, Hawley says he has personal assurances from the administration.
The United States has no ground troops currently in Venezuela or operating in Venezuela. Number two, that if the administration sought to put ground troops into Venezuela, they would abide by the War Powers Act, and they would come to Congress for congressional authorization. The Secretary also told me directly that the administration will not put ground troops into Venezuela. They do not seek to occupy Venezuela. But his commitment to abide by the War Powers notification procedures and also the Constitution is directly responsive to my concerns.
So what happened between then and now? Well, President Trump went online and said Josh Hawley should never again be elected. This isn't the first time we've seen Senator Hawley's words and actions diverge. Once he said he was against Medicaid cuts, then he voted for them. He once said he was opposed to higher health insurance premiums after voting to allow them. He said he was for building out our national infrastructure, after voting against the infrastructure bill that was on his desk. He said he once secured funding for military housing at Fort Leonard Wood because he wrote an angry letter to the Army, but he had already voted against the bill to pay for it. He also said he's against corporate PAC money and Citizens United. He previously took corporate cash and specifically money from the Citizens United Political Victory Fund for his campaign. If trust is the currency of self-government, this was a reminder that in Washington, that can depreciate quickly. That's our show. Until next time, we're off the record.